All right, thanks everyone for joining the webinar. And today I'll be talking about introducing RisingWave Premium Edition, elevate your stream processing capabilities. So we talk about a lot. Over the past few webinars, we talk a lot about what the RisingWave is and what you can do with RisingWave, and let's say I'll probably compare it with some other systems. But today I will talk more about our own product. A new edition of RisingWave, which is called RisingWave Premium. We probably didn't really mention it previously, at least publicly. We didn't really promote it a lot, but essentially that's something we have some soft launch, but afterwards we will definitely promote it and talk more about what RisingWave Premium is and what you can do with this special edition. Okay, this is some housekeeping items, and I can skip this part. All right. Again, thank everyone for joining the webinar. And I'm Yingjun Wu, and I'm founder of RisingWave Labs. So I will skip the intro. Okay. So in today's talk, we'll be talking about, first give a pretty high-level overview about what is RisingWave, and then secondly, we'll talk about why we launched the RisingWave Premium Edition. And also, I would like to talk about the principles behind RisingWave Premium. I will also give some highlights of the features included in the RisingWave Premium, and afterwards we can do a question session. Yeah. Okay, so what is RisingWave? RisingWave is the data platform for event-driven workloads. But essentially, a lot of people know that RisingWave is essentially a streaming database, right? So it offers the best-in-class stream processing, analytics, and management capabilities. Let's assume that you have data coming from the Kafka streams, or probably Rapanda stream, Pausa stream, whatever event streaming system, right? Or you have data coming from the database system, operational database like MySQL, Postgres, or MongoDB, or you have data stored in your, let's say, the batch store like data lakehouse, Iceberg, right? Or from the S3. You actually have this data, and what the RisingWave can do is that it can continuously ingest the data from these data sources, do processing, transformation, analytics, let's say joins, aggregations, time winning functions, everything, and then send the results into downstreaming systems or directly serve the result into your application. So in the past, let's say that we have the data stack like, event streaming system and a stream processing system and a database system. RisingWave can essentially replace the stream processing plus the database part. But if you believe that, I have already had my Snowflake, right? Well, probably I have already had my Redshift. I don't really want to store data in RisingWave. That's fine. You can directly deliver data into Snowflake or Redshift or some other data systems. So RisingWave, then what is a RisingWave's classic use cases? Just like many other stream processing systems, RisingWave focus on low latency, high throughput processing, continuous processing. And the pretty classical use cases like continuous data analytics, right? Let's say that you have data from, let's say, Kafka streams. You can just run some SQL queries, basically define some SQL queries, and RisingWave can continuously analyze the data, and generate results for you. And second thing here is definitely monitoring and learning. Think about it. Let's say that you have the data streams from your IoT devices, right? Or probably network traffic, right? Or if you want to monitor the network traffic, you can definitely also use RisingWave to do such kind of processing, and you can just set rules, probably or set the computation logic inside the RisingWave, and it can using SQL, and RisingWave can detect these anomalies or probably detect this frauds, right? If it's in a fraud detection use case, detect a fraud in real time continuously. And a more popular use case could be like real-time ETL. Real-time ETL, like a lot of system can actually do real-time ETL, but real-time ETL can actually mean a lot of things. I mean, a pretty classic use case, a pretty classic example is that you probably want to replicate the data from your Postgres to, let's say, Snowflake. Everyone can do that. You probably don't really need to have a classic, you don't really need to have a commercial data system, right? You probably can just write a Python code and ingest the data consume the data from Postgres and then send it to Snowflake or whatever, right? Whatever system you have. But think about if you want to do more complicated processing, data enrichment. Okay, join data from your data stream systems and let's say a batch system, let's say S3, right? You really need to do data enrichment and you really need to do transformation. Then RisingWave could be a pretty good fit. And we do have some pretty nice features to enhance for your to elevate your capabilities for doing the real-time ETL, for example, the schema change. And the lastly, we can also do the feature engineering, right? Today, a lot of people talk about, okay, large language model, but in many use cases, where we find that in many companies, they essentially still do the traditional, they don't really need to have LLM. They can just use a small model, right? And if you want to have such kind of like small machine learning model, then the best way is still to do like say training and then inference. And the RisingWave could be the feature engineering layer for you. Basically, you can define the SQL queries and run continuously run the feature transformation and ingest the transformed results or the so-called training data or the inference data into your model. Yeah, that's the pretty classic use cases. Then what about the industries, right? Who needs continuous analytics and who needs monitoring and alerting and who needs, everyone needs real-time ETL. So who needs this? So what we find here is that, well, in terms of the industry, our top industries include financial services, like payment services. Well, if you want to do payment, then you probably really want to detect the frauds, right? For how many how many transactions haven't been made by a single credit card, right? Well, let's say that's right. If the single credit card can issue, let's say 100 transactions within the last 5 seconds or within last 5 minutes, then potentially it could be a fraud, right? We have to identify this kind of fraud. And stock trading is definitely a big industry for us. Well, big vertical for us. Stock trading, who does the stock trading? I mean, brokerages and hedge funds, right? Brokerage will actually help the people to issue the transactions. Well, hedge fund they have they do algo trading, right? But or even exchange, right? Well, they also probably need to. I mean, they actually process these transactions, right? In all these kind of companies, what they need to have is that they actually need to have a so-called order management system, or they want to do compliance, right? In real time. For example, I don't really want to issue so many transactions for a single client. Potentially, there are some regulations, right? And I also want to avoid the fraud, right? So I definitely want to do risk control. Let's say that, well, if a single person have already issued 500 transactions within the last 1 minute, then probably I should detect such kind of behavior and to identify, okay, whether this is a real transaction or not. And the other industries we found quite interesting include, well, entertainment. For example, if you want to do sports betting, and sports betting is legal in many states, or in the United States. And if you really want to do, let's say, in-game sports betting, definitely RisingWave could be a pretty good fit. And you can calculate the opportunities and the risks in real time. In-game analytics, right? For in-game, let's say that's where if you are predicting games, right? Video games, right? Then probably really want to detect whether or analyze the user behaviors. So in-game analytics is pretty important for these kind of companies. And apart from entertainment, definitely there are some classic for industries like energy and manufacturing, as well as logistics, right? And you can imagine that how important it is for the real-time stream processing could be, right, for these industries. Okay, then how can I get RisingWave today? So you can essentially get RisingWave from multiple places. The first one is that, well, definitely if you believe that okay, you have your own cluster and if you want to run RisingWave your own cluster or even your laptop, you can just download the RisingWave source code, or you can just probably a Docker image, or probably deploy RisingWave using Kubernetes operator, right? Well, if you say that, well, I don't really want to manage so many things, then what I can do, we have a RisingWave Cloud, and you can do fully managed service, and we host everything for you. But some people say that, well, my company probably have some kind of rules that do not really allow people my data to be sent out on my account. What I can do, we offer BYOC, bring your own cloud, so that for the data plane is always sitting to your account, AWS account or GCP or Azure account, cloud account. We only manage the service for you. Basically, we do not really get access to your data. We only help you to maintain the system. That's a bring your own cloud service. So then people I think a classic question people could raise is that is RisingWave Cloud a hosted open source version, open source RisingWave? Well, I mean, I have to say that for RisingWave self-managed or the open source version RisingWave is pretty solid, and you basically can do everything inside of RisingWave using the RisingWave open source version. But definitely, it's not equivalent to the RisingWave Cloud. So what are the differences? Think about the iceberg, right? RisingWave open source will, as you can see in the GitHub repo, it's just like, okay, it includes a lot of features. It includes all the fundamental stream processing, analytics, and the management features that can help you to create a stream processing pipeline or create an event-driven applications. You can do everything. But what if you want to do more? Let's say that well, I'm from financial service and I want to do some advanced features related to my business logic. Then essentially that's something not we offered not that we do not really offer in the RisingWave open source version. We offer these features in the RisingWave Cloud, and we call this advanced and domain-specific stream processing features. Apart from that, RisingWave Cloud also has a cloud-only features like SSO, right, for the single sign-on, audit log, which helps you to audit your behaviors, right, who log into a system and what command a person has already run, right, and monitoring stack. A lot of people probably don't really want to purchase a Datadog or probably a New Relics, right? They do not really want to purchase such kind of pretty expensive monitoring stack. We actually cover everything for you. And definitely in RisingWave Cloud, you can also get a Cloud UI as well as API. And you can use RisingWave Cloud in all these three cloud providers, AWS, GCP, and Azure. Then why we launch RisingWave Premium? So because we have already had people who say, okay, we have already had RisingWave Cloud open source. We can deploy in my own machine, my own laptop, my own cluster. And if I don't really want to do that, well, then I can run RisingWave Cloud. Then what is RisingWave Premium? Well, look, what we found here is that well, in many companies, well, they actually have some regulations. They probably have some, let's say, all kinds of the policies or probably some pretty old data stack, and which do not really allow them to use a cloud. But these users probably are pretty super interested in the advanced features, right? Or they probably really want to have dedicated support service from us, from the original creator of RisingWave, then what they can do. So that's why we introduced the RisingWave Premium Edition. So if we go back to this chart or this diagram, what is RisingWave Premium? RisingWave Premium is essentially what we have in this box. We do not really, yeah, let's say that if you cannot deploy your system, you cannot using RisingWave Cloud, but if you but you really want to have advanced support for all the advanced and the domain-specific stream processing features from us, then you can essentially purchase our license and get a RisingWave Premium Edition. The question here is that what's the principle of RisingWave Premium, right? And we know that, and what's inside, right? Before talk about what inside, we actually need to understand what's the principle of the RisingWave Premium. Do we just randomly add some features into RisingWave Premium? And what will be included? What could be included in RisingWave open source, and what could not be included, right? What could only be accessible in the RisingWave Premium Edition, right? What's the principle? So our principle here is that open source RisingWave Cloud, RisingWave is always under Apache 2.0 license, and we have no plan to change the license. And most importantly, we strive to maintain the open source RisingWave as the best stream processing solution in the open source world. So if you compare with any other stream processing systems in the market or in the open source world, you will find that RisingWave is always cheaper and more cost efficient, and essentially more performant system. Sorry. And there are three types of features which are called paid features may be included in the RisingWave Premium. What are these three types of features? The first one is integrations with commercial software. Let's say that if you have, let's say, Oracle or SQL Server, right, which are, a closed source for commercial software, then and if we build if you really want to have the integration between RisingWave and this commercial software, then essentially you have to use RisingWave Premium. And these kind of features are all included in the RisingWave Premium Edition. And the second thing here is that we're advanced features that can enhance RisingWave capabilities. So let's say that if you want to, so again, I want to probably want to talk more about the RisingWave design principle or the architecture. RisingWave uses so-called decoupled computing and storage architecture in order to reduce the cost, because for all the internal states and the storage could be stored persisted in S3, and S3 is cheaper, much cheaper than EC2. Everyone knows that, right? But some people will say that, well, can I make things for even cheaper, right? So look, RisingWave open source is already a lot of cheaper compared to any other system. But essentially, in RisingWave Cloud, we can make things even cheaper by using some mechanisms like called smart disk cache. I will mention it later. And all these features will be included in the RisingWave Premium. Introducing such kind of features will harm the RisingWave open source version, because the RisingWave open source version is still the cheapest solution you can get from the market. And the third feature set is domain-specific features like as of join, right? Let's say that if you work in the financial service industry, then you definitely know what it is, right? If you really want to analyze let's say the live market data, then as of join is pretty popular. It's a pretty popular feature, and we have these features included in the RisingWave Premium Edition. So now let's talk about some feature highlights. So first of all, the first part is the integration, right? Integration could include the SQL Server CDC connector. SQL Server is a pretty popular commercial software, and people probably really want to ingest the data from the SQL Server and do processing, do kind of analytics, real-time analytics, or directly deliver the result or deliver the SQL Server data into their, let's say, Snowflake or Redshift or data warehouses, right? And we essentially implemented the RisingWave CDC connector for SQL Server, so that we can directly consume the CDC streams from the SQL Server without hosting any additional components. And the second innovation I want to highlight is the sync to Azure SQL database. We know that a lot of people, especially in the enterprise companies, they actually use a Azure SQL database. And the Azure SQL database will have and they actually want to sync the data from their let's say Postgres MySQL into these Azure SQL databases, right? And if you want to do that, well, then you can directly use RisingWave Cloud because all the RisingWave Premium Edition because we have the direct sync to Azure SQL database, so that you do not need to manage the additional layer, for example, the middleware such as Kafka, right? Also, sync to Snowflake and BigQuery are included in the RisingWave Premium Edition. Then let's talk about the performance, right? I mentioned just now. I mentioned the small disk cache. So think about what is small disk cache. I want to talk more about that. If you go back to the RisingWave open source version, then you will find, if you check out the source code, you will find all the documentation. You will find that RisingWave's key principle, design principle, is that it adopts the so-called coupled computing and storage architecture. So in this architecture, you essentially store not just the storage, but also internal states, right? Let's say that we do a two-way join. And in joins, if you want to do joins, you essentially need to maintain the internal states, which is essentially the intermediate results, right? We actually maintain these intermediate results into S3 so that you do not need to worry about first the cost, right? So because EC2 is very expensive. Second, the auto memory, right? If you have experience in running, let's say, big query, complex queries like say multi-way joins, then you will immediately know that multi-way joins can consume a lot of memory, right? And if you consume a lot of memory, then a typical problem here is that the system can crash due to the auto memory issue. So in RisingWave, you probably will not come from that kind of problem because we essentially maintain the internal states in S3, so that we can guarantee the first one is that high availability, and second one is that it's even cheaper than than any other solutions. But the problem here is that again, I mean this. In the open source version, it's already RisingWave. RisingWave is already cheaper than any other solutions because of such kind of design principles. But how can we make this even cheaper? Well, we find that a main pain point in RisingWave in this architecture is that AWS actually charges people for the I/O access, the S3 I/O access, right? The I/O access could be very expensive if you store a large amount of data, or if you frequently access S3, no matter whether it's get and put, right? That could be very expensive, and that's charged by AWS, right? And even if you deploy on-prem in your AWS account, you have to eat a cost. Then what we think about is that whether we can help you to further reduce the cost to pay AWS less money. We actually introduced the feature called a small disk cache, and which essentially leverages the EBS to cache the data. So someone will say that, well, look, EBS is also pretty expensive, right? That we can, some people will also say that, well, okay, I came from some other database. I heard of some other people mention that we're using EBS is anti-pattern. But what we can tell you is that leverage the EBS could be even cheaper compared to the S3 access fee. We have already done a lot of experiments and find that introducing the EBS can help you to reduce the S3 access by up to 95%, which means that you can cut your S3 access bill by 95%, which could be a huge amount. And this amount could be much greater compared to the EBS cost. So, well, there's one thing. Okay. What are the key differences in connector support between RisingWave Premium and open source? Okay, as I just mentioned, well, there's not much difference in that we actually support for the integration with commercial software like SQL Server and SQL Server, Azure SQL Database, Snowflake, BigQuery, and some other systems. And fundamentally, there's no tricks. Well, definitely, if you talk about, let's say, Postgres, right? Postgres is pretty popular, and we do not really have additional special Postgres for integrations. And you can just find the Postgres CDC connector in the open source version. But we do have some features around the CDC to help you better manage the CDC streams. I can talk about it later, which is schema evolution. Yeah, I will cover that part after this topic about the small data cache. So go back to the small data cache. What we found here that we're introducing the EBS can significantly cut your S3 access fee, so by up to 95%. So you essentially pay much less money to AWS S3 for the S3 access. And the amount you need to pay, the amount of money you need to pay for the EBS is definitely much less compared to such kind of like S3 access fee. But I have to say that it's definitely, again, well, for 95%, well, it's definitely some pretty heavy workload. But if your workload is not heavy, you probably won't access S3 such frequently, right? And in that case, then definitely you probably don't need have such kind of issue. Have such kind of feature, right? So I have to say that all these kind of like say performance improvements and the cost reduction can vary depending on your workload. Yeah. So then the next topic I will talk about, well, this is definitely related to the connector, right? We actually spend a lot of efforts in the RisingWave Premium Edition to improve the usability and to make the system much easier to use compared to any other systems. One challenge here is that, if you want to do it here, one challenge here is that what if I want to change the schema from my upstream systems, right? Let's say that I have the let's say Postgres on my SQL, right? Well, these systems are open source, right? And RisingWave, we do actually have the open source. We do have the CDC connector for MySQL and Postgres in the RisingWave open source version, and it's free and it's highly performant. But in some pretty serious production use cases, some companies could change the schema frequently. For example, let's say that in the stock market. In stock market, they probably don't really change the schema that frequently, but that can affect a lot. Can affect the data quality a lot. But so, yeah, they actually do not really want to manage the schema on their own, right? So we try to solve the problem for them. That's why we introduced the automatic schema evolution strategy for this kind of users. And let's say that if you have a Postgres or if you have a MySQL and you change a column, add a column, no matter whether it's add a column, update a column, or remove a column, RisingWave can actually listen to these upstream systems and propagate these changes to the downstream system after data transformation. That's yeah. Okay, so question here that if I'm sending data from Postgres to Snowflake using RisingWave, do I need Kafka? No, you do not need to Kafka. You do not need to have Kafka. So a big advantage of using RisingWave is that you do not need to use Kafka at all. RisingWave has a CDC so that you can essentially consume the data directly from let's say Postgres, MySQL, MongoDB, or let's say S3. Whatever system you have, as long as it's a data system, right? Or even DynamoDB can directly consume this kind of data from this kind of systems without using Kafka. And if you want to send the data from RisingWave to a downstreaming system like Iceberg or like yeah, like Snowflake or Redshift, you also do not need to have an intermediate layer, which could be Kafka. So essentially, can cut your bill by a lot because essentially that's yeah, it's the yeah, we handle the data ingestion and the data delivery for you, and you do not need to have a specialized system sitting in between RisingWave and the upstream system or the downstream systems. And we, apart from that, what I just mentioned in this slide, we actually even help you to do the schema evolution for you. If you use Kafka, actually Kafka do not really help you to do that, and we actually help you do that. So that well, even if you have you have schema changes in your upstream services, we actually help you to change the schema and propagate the schema to the downstream systems. So that's what we have in the RisingWave in the RisingWave Premium Edition. So there are some other cool features, right? And one feature I want to highlight here is that okay, okay. So hold a second. So yeah, there are also some cool features included in RisingWave Cloud, in RisingWave Premium as well as RisingWave Cloud, such as the time travel query, right? So in a stream processing system continuously process data streams. But the problem here is that what if we want to, we can always use the stream processing system to get real-time results, right? Or the freshest results, all the results generated from the let's say last 10 seconds or probably last 1 second, right? That's what the stream processing system can do. But in some domains, we actually need to do more. For example, we actually want to travel back and fetch the results from a certain time point. Let's say that we're using stock trading as an example. I'm pretty interested in this for stock trading example, right? I mean, because in a couple of months, where I worked with a lot of like hedge funds and the brokerages, so I know their use case is pretty real. So that's why I'm frequently using stock trading as an example. But we'll think about the stock trading. If we want to go back to a certain time point, let's say that right now it's 9:34 in PT, but Pacific time zone. But what if I want to fetch the results generated in 7 a.m. this morning? Can we do that? So if you use a traditional stream processing system, no matter what kind of system you have, the only way you can do that is essentially you have to go back to the initial data point and replay the entire stream in order to get a result for that data point, for that time point. So that's all this stream processing system can do. But that's very time consuming and can consume a lot of computation resources, right? Because you actually do have to recompute the data, right? But the RisingWave can do many more. Yeah, can do much more. What we can do is that we essentially store all the snapshots for all the so-called checkpoints. It's actually not kind of like a checkpoint. It's more like a snapshot for you. So that you can essentially directly fetch the checkpoint or fetch a snapshot at that time point without recomputation. Or even if let's say that if you want to just get a random fetch the results from a random time point, what can we do? Okay, well, I mean, we can always consume, or we can always store the data results for every single data point, right? For every single time point. But that could be very expensive in terms of the storage usage, right? But what we can do is that, okay, we will help you to go back to the previous time point or the nearest snapshot and replay only partially. And so that you can quickly fetch the results for random data point. And that's what we can do in the RisingWave Premium Edition. And you can also leverage this feature in the RisingWave Cloud. Okay, so there's one question: is RisingWave used for real-time streaming mostly? Do people commonly use for batch processing? So like, yes, well, RisingWave is best used for the stream processing, and well, it totally depends on how you can define batch. So I mean, if you want to use RisingWave to replace Spark, no, I don't really think that's what it's like. It's designed for the Spark workload. But let's say that if you want to do something like, okay, the query serving, yeah, definitely RisingWave it could be a pretty good option. But but if you do not really need to have stream processing, and the only thing you need to is to do, let's say, a batch processing, right? Let's say 80% of your queries are like batch queries, but only, let's say, 10% of your queries are like streaming query, and the other 10 probably just random queries. Then in this case, I would like to recommend that probably you can just use a batch processing system, right? But if you want to, but if your workload is like, okay, at least 50% of your workload like stream processing or the data streaming workloads, right? Then definitely I would like to recommend RisingWave. But again, I'm not trying to claim that RisingWave can replace Snowflake or replace Redshift or replace any other batch systems. It's not a Snowflake alternative. It's not. It's a stream process. It's a definitely focus a lot on the stream processing. And definitely many people ask us about the Kappa architecture, right? Because so people know that there are Lambda architecture. In the Lambda architecture, you actually have the batch layer as well as a streaming layer, right? And you use actually different systems. Let's say using Spark for the for batch processing, while using Flink for the speedy for the stream processing right? People do such kind of architecture. And but there is another architecture which is called Kappa architecture. In the Kappa architecture, you actually use one single system to process both stream processing to process both streaming data and batch data. RisingWave Go, I mean, it can definitely be fit into your Lambda architecture to replace your stream processing system and make it cheaper and more affordable, or probably much easier to use. It can definitely replace that. But well, essentially, you can also use RisingWave to fit into your Kappa architecture. That is, you can use RisingWave to process your both streaming data and batch data. But again, RisingWave is not a Snowflake alternative, and it's not trying to replace Spark. If your workload is like batch heavy, then I would like to recommend you to use Snowflake or probably Redshift or probably Spark, right? Does RisingWave Premium support customizable UDFs for more specialized cases? So I'm not sure about what are customizable UDFs, but essentially, if you check a RisingWave's open source version, we actually have already support all types of all kinds of UDFs. For example, the the Python UDF, Rust UDF, or probably Java UDF, or some other UDFs, right? But well, I understand that in some specific domains, for example, we actually work with some 5G company or the telecommunication company. They actually want to do something like UDF, like, okay, they calculate a certain kind of signals in order to detect for example, the sigma signal, right? In order to detect a fraud or in order to detect anomaly. And they ask us, okay, whether I can do that using RisingWave. We will tell them that yes, we can do that. And I mean, you will not directly get a signal computation, a specialized signal computation within the existing RisingWave, but we can talk and we will check, okay, whether your use case is like, okay, it's general enough, and we will consider whether to include it in RisingWave or recommend you to just implement it on your own, because let's say that we cannot just include every single very specialized use cases in RisingWave, right? So again, back to your question. Yes, well, I mean, RisingWave does support UDF, and it can support UDF in multiple languages. But if you talk about the specific UDF functions, then we have to talk and we have to check, okay, whether this function is all in our roadmap, or we believe that it should be included in our roadmap, or we probably have already had it in RisingWave Premium Edition. Yeah, so let's go back to the time travel queries. And as you can see, if you come from such kind of problem, you cannot solve this problem using any other stream processing system. But you can essentially get it in the RisingWave Cloud or the RisingWave Premium Edition, because we can do it for you. We can do all these kind of dirty works for you. And definitely there are some other pretty interesting features I just mentioned, like as of drawing, which is pretty popular in the financial service world. And we will definitely include that. Well, I mean, we have already included that in the RisingWave Premium Edition. So, yeah, let's try to summarize. In the past, what we have is that we have the RisingWave self-managed service, right? You can just let's say that if you don't really want to use any cloud service and you just want to play with RisingWave or probably try RisingWave in a small scale, then what you can do is that you can either download RisingWave code or probably just download a Docker image or using Kubernetes to deploy RisingWave in your cluster. You can do that on your own, and we support everything. And we have all these kinds of support. And yeah, you can just check out for the code base, and it's Apache 2.0 licensed and can essentially support a lot of stream processing workloads, all kinds of the stream processing management and analytics workload. But if you tell us that, okay, look, well, you don't really want to manage anything, and we can actually manage RisingWave for you. We can do it for the managed service or help you to manage RisingWave in your cloud account. So that's where your data is always sitting in your data account, right? The cloud account, right? So if you want to have such kind of use case, if you want to have such kind of service, then definitely check out RisingWave Cloud. But now what we have here is that we essentially introduced a new edition called RisingWave Premium, which brings advanced features or domain-specific features from the RisingWave Cloud to the self-managed service world, so that you can essentially get all these advanced features and try all these advanced features in your own cluster, in your own hardware, without touching the cloud. That's what we have in the RisingWave Premium Edition. So as a summary, RisingWave Premium is an edition that brings advanced features in RisingWave Cloud to the self-managed customers. And open source RisingWave will always be under Apache 2.0 license. And we were not trying to license, and we always try to maintain RisingWave, the open source RisingWave, to be the best open source stream processing solution for you, so that you do not need to worry about how I can manage the internal space, and you do not need to worry about spending too much money on stream processing. You can just use RisingWave open source version. But RisingWave Premium Edition essentially delivers even higher performance and lower cost, even compared to open source RisingWave, and while offering broader ecosystem access, such as access to the integrations with commercial software and enhanced ease of use. And that's RisingWave Cloud. Okay, so yeah, that's my talk, and then let's try to answer some questions. So there are a bunch of questions. Is RisingWave Premium available to try for free? Yes, right. Yes, you can just contact us and we can generate a license for you. And you can always try all kind of different functionalities, and we can essentially also provide some support for your specialized needs. For example, if you work in, let's say, telecommunication industry, or probably you work in the financial service industry, contact us and we can essentially provide a better customized use cases for you. And how do RisingWave and Flink compare to specialized use cases such as IoT applications in manufacturing, energy, automotive, or logistics? Because both RisingWave and Flink are general purpose stream processing systems. What are strengths and weaknesses in these scenarios? And okay, so look, yes. RisingWave and Flink are both the open source software, right? For both open source stream processing system. And the difference here is that if you come from a Java shop or probably a Python shop, we actually will support Python later. Let's say if you come from a company that always use Java instead of any other languages, then I believe that probably Flink or probably Spark Streaming could be a better fit for your case. But let's say that if you if your data stack is more like probably SQL or probably Python, or probably if you're okay with let's say Java UDF, then I believe that RisingWave is always a better solution in all kinds of dimensions, such as cost efficiency, such as performance, and such as ease of use. We're pretty confident on that part. And what are their strengths and the weakness? Yes, as just mentioned, I mean, so it really depends on use case. I cannot say that RisingWave is always better than Flink, or Flink is always better, always worse than RisingWave. I will not say that. But again, depending on workload and depending on use case, in most cases, we are pretty confident to support you, especially if your workload is like SQL or Python workload, or you can do something like UDF to work to use the Java language, right? And how will RisingWave Premium future versions address these challenges? Okay, we probably will not directly provide the Java API, but we do have plan to provide the Python API, and there are I know that there have already been some work. So if you are interested in using Python stream processing, then reach out to us and we can discuss more about your use case. Can you share what's the roadmap for the upcoming premium features? Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Yeah, essentially we need to do that. Yeah, let's talk about that for after this webinar, because I don't really have the roadmap at the moment. But again, well, my roadmap, I mean, we definitely have great people working on this roadmap. But I mean, as a high level guideline, I can only say that I mean, the roadmap always follow the principles behind the RisingWave Premium. That is, we do not really, I mean, we always include have integrations with RisingWave Premium will always include features like integrations with commercial software, advanced features that enhance the capabilities, or domain-specific features, right? And what's the difference in feature functionality between RisingWave Cloud and the Premium? So, look, I mean, there is no fundamental difference if you are looking for advanced features or the domain-specific features, right? But let's say that if you want to use something like SSO or audit log or monitoring data stack or monitoring stack or cloud UI, I mean, which is only accessible in cloud, you have to use RisingWave Cloud, because for luck, I mean, for SSO, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have SSO in your own private environment, right? And in your private environment, you probably have already had your monitoring data stack, or probably have already had your auditing service, right? We will not provide that. But in RisingWave Cloud, we essentially provide everything for you so that you do not need to manage all these kind of stuff. Cool. All right.
There was a lot of questions. If there are no more questions, last call. We are completing this webinar. Thank you everyone for attending, and see you soon.
All right. Thanks everyone, and join our Slack committee, and we can talk more about the role, what included in RisingWave Premium. Or if you want to talk more about, let's say, just the general stream processing, event-driven architectures, or even the data ecosystem, yeah, let's talk, and we can talk. Yeah, DM is always open, and yeah, happy to answer all these kind of questions.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks. Bye.